Hi, my name's Tom and welcome to 31 Days of Horror. I'm going to be watching a horror film every day in the run up to Halloween, basically. I'm sure you may have done this yourself, or you may have seen other people on YouTube do it. It's kind of a thing, I think. I'm recording this on the 3rd of October, so here is a rundown of my first 3 horror films. Number 1, on the 1st of October I watched Black Sabbath, which is a great film by Italian director Mario Bava. It's an anthology film comprised of 3 short stories that make up a feature. There's 2 versions of the film. There's the Italian cut and the English dub cut. Biggest difference between the American version and the Italian version is that the 3 stories are in a different order. Now, it doesn't really matter what order they go in, except for the fact that I would say perhaps the creepiest story is The Drop of Water, which in the English dub version is the first story, and in the Italian version is the last story. And I think it works better being the last story, personally. So I actually prefer the Italian version. And that's the one I watched. I have seen the English dub version as well, but this time round I watched the Italian version, and it was the first time I'd seen the Italian version. It starts off with what I would consider to be the weakest of the 3 stories, which is the telephone story, which is still good. I mean, Mario Bava is really good director. He uses a lot of artificial lighting all the way through, bright pink and green lights, which make it seem very unreal and artificial and dreamlike, basically. It's like stepping into a nightmare. And later Dario Argento would take inspiration from that, and you see that a lot in his work as well. Brilliant film, would highly recommend it. Number 2, on the 2nd of October I watched Angel Heart, which I'd never seen before. Very interesting film. On the surface, it's just a noir. It's a film noir because it's set in the 50s, and it's about a private detective who smokes and drinks and swaggers around in lots of shadowy dark corridors and lots of revolving fans, and it's all very film noir, the whole thing. The thing that makes it a horror thriller, I guess, although thriller is just, it's like a branch of horror, although won't go into that. Investigating someone who's gone missing or is just unaccounted for, and the person who's employing him is this rather mysterious figure played by Robert De Niro. As he investigates, he uncovers all this weird witchcraft going on. It's almost like a sort of cult. It's in Louisiana, and it's a bit like Serpent and the Rainbow, in that it's a white guy who goes off into sort of a place that is predominantly black to learn about witchcraft and that type, and hoodoo and that type of thing. Every time he just starts to learn a bit more, someone he's spoken to is killed, and they're always really nasty deaths. So someone's leaving a trail of bodies. This block of flats, and one has a light on and it keeps panning towards this flat. Something really ominous about the flat and what might be going on inside there. So that's where the horror comes from, really. And I don't really want to say too much else, because it's one of those films that sort of, less you say about it the better in some ways. I would definitely recommend it. Number 3, which is the film I watched today, on 3rd of October, I watched Christine, the Stephen King adaptation, directed by John Carpenter, who's obviously a master at what he does. He's a great director. He manages to make the viewer really emotionally invested in what is essentially a killer car movie. It's a car that kills people, and it's as silly as it sounds. It's a really silly idea, and as with most of his films, it's white suburban middle class America, and it's all these wholesome kids who are, you know, at high school. It's that type of world, and we get to know them, and it's all about people with his films, and so you get emotionally invested. And then even when there's something as strange as this car that comes into their lives, the more you get into it, the more you forget about the premise of it being, oh, it's a killer car, and the more you just sort of start to invest in the characters and the story. I really enjoyed it. I think it was good. It's not my favourite Carpenter film. I prefer I prefer The Thing and Halloween and The Fog. So those were my first 3 films of this month. Tune in next time. Thank you.